God, I'm telling you, my dogs are barking today.
But man, my dogs are barking.
Well, welcome into the My Dogs Are Barking podcast, a representative for Mississippi State for the College Huddle. And today we have quite a treat from the Clarion Ledger. Stefan Krasnik is joining us for the second time. He joined us last year, a little bit after we launched. And so we're so thankful to have Stefan here. This is a crazy time for him with the spring game for football for Mississippi State, the baseball season really getting in kind of to the main part, and now the transfer portal with basketball. So he is a very busy guy. So the fact that he's given us a little bit of time is wonderful. Stefan, just real quick, talk about the Madden. Like, what is your week like dealing with all three of those things at one time?
Yeah, it's busy, like you said. It's definitely a fun time, but a hectic time. It's like, you're writing an article and you're like, Shaquille Moore has entered the portal, leaving Mississippi State football. You're like, wait, no, he's on the basketball team. This guy's in the portal for football. It's everything's all over the place right now. It's really kind of the crazy overlap of all four, sports teams, I should say, that we primarily cover with both basketball teams, football and baseball, the portal, high school recruiting, baseball games going on. They're competing for regional. It's a crazy time of the year, but I can't complain, man. It's fun. There's always something going on, always something to talk about. I'm definitely glad to be joining you here to be able to talk about some of that.
Yeah, and the most recent thing this past week, Mississippi State had their spring game, kind of the first look at Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State with his team, with his offense. And people saw from the highlights, or if they're at the game, his offense was exciting and it was fast. But there was a lot of talk about his offense before this game even started. And I don't know, do you feel like Jeff Lebby's offense in the spring game set the tone kind of expectations for what this team could be?
Yeah, no doubt. I think you're going into this year, and I hate to the comparison's made a lot, and I hate to do it because of the rivalry, but it does resemble a lot of what you kind of, well, you're hoping it resembles of what you saw in Lane Kiffin's first season at Ole Miss, right? Like, they had holes on defense. They had a lot to address on defense, but you knew with Kiffin, the offense was going to be there. And I think going into year one with Lebby, that's kind of what you're looking at, because just look at the gap of the type of players that they've gotten, whether it be, I'll say primarily the portal, because that's most of what Lebby's been doing so far on both sides. But like the level of players that they're getting in the portal compared, or on offense from the portal compared to what they're getting on defense, it's a big gap, right? Like the talent on offense is going to be a lot bigger or a lot better than you're going to have on defense. And I think that's because of who Jeff Lebby is and kind of his reputation in college football. And I think that's why going into the season, that's what you're going to see is if Mississippi State is clicking on offense, you're going to be pretty good about, Jeff Lebby's tenure. If they're playing games, they're playing games that are like 14-10, you're going to be, even if they're winning, you're going to be sitting there saying, wait, that's not why we hired Jeff Lebby, right? That's not why he was brought in. So I think that's what you're kind of expecting going into this year and what you saw in the spring game. This is an explosive offense that's going to take some deep shots. They're trying to get better at the running back room, but I think it's an offense that's going to run the ball a good amount as well, and it should be effective running it just because of how it's going to complement what they have in the passing attack. I think you saw Blake Shapen as a quarterback that Lebby likes and fits in his system and is capable of doing what Jeff Lebby needs him to do. So I think going into this year, you saw in the spring game, it's going to be offense, and you're kind of hoping that the defense can just catch up at some point and do enough to win you some games.
Yeah, and honestly, that brings in right to the next point is the defensive part. The offense was there and was incredibly exciting. And there were some points during the game I thought, the offense is so exciting. I wonder if people are even thinking about the defense is getting torched, kind of left and right. The defensive woes for Mississippi State. Do you feel like that this team is going to try to hit the portal hard on the defensive side, or do you think they really are just going to lean in fully on the offense and I guess really hope that they can beat teams in shootouts?
Yeah, I mean it's like it's not that State's not trying to get decent defensive players in the portal. They're just not really succeeding, and I don't know if that's because Coleman Hutzler hasn't really proven himself as a defensive coordinator or what it may be. They're going after decent players. They're just not landing them right now. Maybe they get into the fall and they do better than you expect. And now Coleman Hutzler has something to put on the table when he's talking to some higher level players of being like, hey, like I'm a defensive coordinator. This is gonna work. Like, you need to come to Mississippi State because it's gonna work. Um, but I'm curious to see just what I just like. You look at some of the corners that they brought in. It's like, I think Bryce Pollock can be really good this year, but like, what do you have outside of him? Like, what do you have at safety? You got an Isaac Smith, you got Corey Ellington back there. You got guys you have high expectations for, but they haven't really proven it yet at a consistent rate at a high level. There's just a lot of questions, right? Like, I think they got the talent there in the sense of they got younger players who can step into roles. You look at like a Calvin Dinkins or like a Trayvon Williams, like they got guys who are highly recruited and have the talent. You haven't seen them play yet. So it's like, if October comes around and State has one of the better defensive lines in the SEC, am I going to be surprised? Not necessarily, because they got the talent there, but like, I need to see it first before I can believe it, right? And I think that's kind of where a lot of the players on this defense are. Like, I think you could be good, but you got to show me, because I haven't seen you be consistently good. But like you said, like, they are going, like, the portal is a big thing on defense because they've already, Lebby said that he wants another corner. They went and got, Brumfield from Memphis, and who knows, maybe they go after some other guys. He said that they want another edge rusher, to get from the portal. So like, they're trying, and maybe Coleman Hudson needs just a year to prove it. And then, we're going to be looking at in December, they're going to be bringing in, high level defensive players from the portal. And we're going to be saying, yeah, they just needed a season for Coleman Hudson, because I think Coleman Hudson can be good. I think he's a good coach, and I think the staff that they have on defense, especially with a guy like David Turner's, they can be really good, right? Like, they've got the right coaches in place to develop guys, and when you get to December, you could say, hey, here's what we did, here's who we developed. You're probably gonna have some young players that emerge for, give you some hope for the 2025 season. But you just got to see it on the field first, and I think that's kind of where this group is right now. Of like, get on the field. You don't need to be a great defense, but have some guys that emerge, have some young players take a step forward, so that when you get to 2025 with the defense, you can say, all right, like, here's the pieces we know we have, here's what we got to get. Because I think going into, like, I think in December, when Coleman Hunter came in and they're looking at the portal, they're probably just saying anyone who, like, any position can be filled. Now you're looking at it when you get to December this year, maybe you can say, okay, we're going to go all in on getting a star safety, a star linebacker, something like that.
And speaking of the portal, are there any particular positions that you feel pretty confident they're going to add some depth in for the first part? And secondly, well, I guess kind of in that, Cole Kublik from ESPN mentioned that he thinks that Mississippi State will add an additional quarterback to that room. I'm not necessarily sure if he had different information than I do, but I did want to ask what you thought about that. I know there's rumors of quarterback transfer Jaden Rashada visiting from Arizona State, but nothing really confirmed thus far, to my knowledge. What are your thoughts?
I'll start with the latter part there, the quarterback situation. I mean, like, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this, like, because I think Shapen's the guy, and you'd be pretty hard pressed to find at this point someone better than him to step in. I think Shapen's better than the Arizona State, transfer there. But I think what you're looking for, if you were to add a quarterback, is a veteran-ish backup, I guess, would be the best way to put it, just because behind Shapen you have Chris Parson, who, I know he was an all SEC freshman team selection, but doesn't have a lot of playing time under his belt. And you got Michael Van Buren, who obviously has no playing time under his belt. Like, if Shapen goes down, how confident do you feel in the guys that are behind him? Maybe that's why you bring in someone from the portal and you feel better about your backup. But that's probably just like for State, it's like, if you get a quarterback from the portal, so be it. If not, you're fine, right? Like, you look at what Kiffin's done. Like, he's landed a ton of quarterbacks in the portal, but like, Jackson Dart's the guy. Like, there's no debate about that. So those are my thoughts on the quarterback. Like, it's a situation where, like, it doesn't hurt you to bring someone else in, but like, do you need someone else in? You not necessarily. Remind me again, what was the first part of your question there?
Yeah, the first part was just, is there any particular positions that you think State will end up adding some depth in?
Yeah, I think they're going to go and probably get another offensive lineman. I think you can never have too much depth in that group. I think you got some guys on that unit that are also kind of like what I was talking about with the defense earlier, a bit unproven. Bring in some guys that have a bit more experience, and maybe proven at another program. But it's like offensive line. It's like you could never have too much depth, right? Like how often like offensive linemen go down all the time. Like something happens, guys get nicked up. Like you have to move players around. Like it's never like you think about like what State was able to get in Stephen Lasoya a few years ago. Like that's a guy from the portal. Like he's a great player coming out of Middle Tennessee, but like he was a guy that they could put at so many different spots, on the interior of the offensive line. I think he ended up playing three different, positions for State on that offensive line. Like you can never have too much depth. You can never have too many guys like that, in the locker room. And I think they're making a push for Damian Martinez at running back. I think it's clear Levy wants to improve that running back room, and they're going to go after some big names. Just outside of Martinez, there's not many big names, in the portal. They got the commitment from Rashad Amos, excuse me, from Miami, Ohio. Martinez is kind of the only other big name running back kind of left at this point. They're making a big swing for him. It's going to be State or Miami that lands him probably. But I would say offensive line, running back are probably the two biggest pushes that they're going to make in this spring portal window. And then defensively, there's not a lot of great edge rushers in the portal right now, in my opinion. But like it wouldn't surprise me if they went out and got someone, at least a piece that they felt could provide some depth on that defensive line.
Yeah, I think Mississippi State fans have to be encouraged on Levy's aggressiveness going after Martinez. I mean, he really is a huge name with a lot of
Yeah.
production from Oregon State. But they got the commitment from Rashad Amos. And that commitment's there, but he's now at this moment on April 23rd taking a visit to Colorado. I'm curious about that. What are any thoughts on as to why he did that? You think he already had that in mind, or was he hurt by Mike Wright transferring his former high school teammate?
Yeah, it definitely surprised me to see that he was going to do another visit and I really don't know the timeline of when he decided to do this, if it was genuinely something he decided to do now or if that was something I planned. I don't have an answer on that. Um it's it's promising in the sense of like maybe there's some rumors going around that like Martinez is coming and maybe he felt like he was going to be the starter at State and he sees Martinez in. He's like, all right, like maybe not. Maybe he wants to go somewhere else. Then there's the flip side of it of it's not promising that this guy who just committed to you is taking a visit, to a program like Colorado, a program that, under Deion Sanders is recruited, really well and especially in the transfer portal. So I'm really interested to see how it pans out. I mean, he's a guy that State needs. Um, Number one, even if you get Martinez, you want to have some depth behind Martinez. But if you don't get Martinez, I think Amos is your starting running back. So I think that there's definitely a part of me that's worried that he won't come to State. But then there's also a part of me that is just thinking like nothing surprises you anymore. Like and when it comes to recruiting, especially in the portal, like a guy committing and going on another visit, like it just doesn't surprise me anymore. Like everything's just wild in terms of what's going on in the recruiting realm. So we'll see how it pans out. I don't know. I don't know if how serious he is about that visit. You know, if Colorado's bringing him in, they're I don't think what I'm trying to say is I don't think this is a courtesy visit. I don't think he's just doing this to say he's doing it or to like stay true to his word or something like that. Like you see guys cancel visits all the time after they commit. I mean, Damian Martinez canceled a visit just because after he came to State, he canceled a visit with Kentucky because I think he realized like I'm not going there, I'm not going to waste their time. So I think Amos going on this visit, it's chance that maybe he flips his commitment and goes elsewhere. But if you're State, you're at least feeling pretty good of like you got the commitment. Even if he goes on this visit, you still have that to lean back on.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Wow. And, it was interesting when Amos made his visit or saying that he was going to visit, all of a sudden now, I think since that time, I think two running backs from Colorado have entered the portal. Dylan Edwards as of 30, 40 minutes ago. So really, really interesting things, but have to be encouraged by Levy's aggressiveness going after Martinez. And it appears as if, I believe it's Arizona, Mississippi State, and Miami is Martinez's kind of final three. And it seems like Miami's going all in, trying hard, and obviously they have the facilities and the NIL probably collective. But Mississippi State is fighting to stay in that fight, and that's just very encouraging. That's something I don't think we've seen thus far, in this transfer portal era. I did want to ask you, we have several new opponents on the schedule for Mississippi State this season, and there's a couple different road trips that are going to be a little different than usual. Is there a particular game that you're looking forward to going to?
Yeah, I gotta say, as kind of in my role of being a reporter, you're neutral, like the schedule is awesome. Now, if you're a Mississippi State fan, you're saying, how in the world did Mississippi State get a schedule that features trips to Ole Miss, Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas? It's a brutal road schedule, and Arizona State. It's a brutal road schedule. But as a neutral observer who's traveling and making these trips, I'm very excited. I would my initial like go-to answer is Arizona State, but I'm not going to say that because I went to Tucson a few years ago, so I at least checked off that Arizona trip while covering this team. So I'll say Texas is the trip I'm looking forward to. I mean, to be in that stadium with that environment, to go to Austin, it's going to be really cool, man. I'm really looking forward to it. But like, you could argue that the 4 road trips that State has in the SEC is like the 4 best, like, when you take into account all the factors, tailgating, the city that you're in, the stadium, the opponent, you could argue outside of maybe Alabama and like LSU that those are like the 4 best. Like Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, Tennessee, like tailgating is elite at all those spots. The cities are awesome at all 4 of those spots. Like the football programs and the stadiums are awesome at all 4 of the spots. But I guess I'll say Texas just because that's the new one. I haven't had a chance to be in Austin yet. I'm sure I'm going to gain a few pounds being there in Texas covering those games. So that's probably the one trip I would circle first. But the road schedule this year is awesome, man. If you're a fan that makes those trips, you're in for a treat this season.